Howdy folks, Jambareeqi here, and welcome to another episode of Jambareeqi Orange, the show where I let my patrons decide what I review. The options for this month's episode included Black Christmas, An Old Dog's Christmas Carol, The Nutcracker and the Four Realms, A Christmas Carol 2009, Batman Returns, and Alpha and Omega 2, A Holiday Adventure. They chose Batman Returns. In Batman Returns, Batman, aka Bruce Wayne, must stop the evil Penguin, a physically deformed crime boss who used to work at a circus, from becoming the mayor of Gotham City, with help from the corrupt businessman Max Schreck. Meanwhile, Shrek's secretary Selina Kyle ends up accidentally uncovering some shady secrets about her boss. So she's pushed out of the building, only for stray cats to bring her back to life, which inspires her to become the villain Catwoman. She teams up with the Penguin in an effort to defeat the Caped Crusader. However, Selina and Bruce end up becoming lovers, naive to the fact that they are enemies. Now, this film had a divisive reception, splitting audiences into different camps. Some say that it's an underrated gem that took risks, while many Batman fans don't like that it's more of a Tim Burton film than a Batman movie. And critics despised it for being way too dark. Personally, I grew up with this movie and loved watching it on VHS again and again and again, but apparently a lot of parents were upset that their kids left the film crying. The thing is, this movie was never made for children in the first place. Burton's Batman was always designed to be a more adult take on the detective superhero, but I can also see why kids like me loved it so much, the same reason why I enjoy it now. It's fun because it's so strange. Tim Burton never set out to make a faithful adaptation of the Batman comics. Basically, the studio gave him a lot of power after the success of the first movie, and Burton embraced that creative freedom. Now, I've never been an avid reader of the Batman comics, and wouldn't even call myself a comic book fan, but I enjoy most Tim Burton movies, so it's hard for me to get angry at how this movie is more aligned with the director's vision than the legacy of its source material. What I like about Batman Returns is that it's got this good balance of cartoony comic book fun, gothic macabre, and noir tension. The film can get rather silly, but with good reason, as it uses Penguin's circus roots to justify a strong sense of black humour and over-the-top wackiness. The film makes it clear, right from the start, that it's got a goofy comedic side. From henchmen exploding out of a Christmas present, to the fact that our movie's villain rides a giant rubber duck. So by the time we're seeing penguins with rockets strapped to their backs, I don't exactly find it out of place. It all fits the penguin's ridiculous character.
Hi. I believe the word you're looking for is
Some have also complained that there's not enough Batman in this movie, but it's important to remember that Burton's Batman is supposed to be an enigma, a secretive man who struggles to open up, so of course Burton is going to downplay his presence in the film. He needs to retain his air of mystery. Others have criticised the film for showing a more violent Batman, something I do kind of understand but have complicated feelings about. On the one hand, the violence fits the movie's dark tone, these are dangerous criminals causing havoc in public, and the first movie did establish that this Batman wasn't afraid to kill. But on the other hand, it is pretty shocking seeing him being this violent. It's an aspect of the film that I'm still on the fence about. The movie's dialogue can be very tongue-in-cheek too, especially when characters try to outdo each other with quips and comebacks.
No sweat. I'll just tell the police I was kidnapped by an ugly bird man with fish breath.
Somebody say fish? I haven't been fed all day.
Eat floor. High fiber.
Anyway, I'd like to talk more about the villains, as they play a big part in this film. Penguin, who was abandoned by his parents, has grown up into a remorseless man who resents the world for dehumanizing him. What he wants more than anything is to feel like he's part of society.
I wasn't born in the sewer, you know. I come from like you. And like you, I want some respect. A recognition of my basic humanity.
But his hunger for power and revenge is his ultimate trapping. So when his plans fail, he accepts that maybe he's more animal than man. But he doesn't forgive his parents for their cruelty and decides to kill every firstborn in Gotham. Penguin is very much the antithesis of Bruce Wayne, someone who let the grief of having no parents drive him to hatred. At first, Bruce sympathizes with him because he can see himself in the Penguin. But when further research proves that Penguin is manipulating Gotham into loving him, using his dead parents as emotional leverage on the city, Bruce's endearment to the orphan fades away, and he becomes convinced that there's no soul to reach out to. Penguin's circus background explains why he approaches his villainy with such flamboyancy. He's almost like a charismatic ringmaster. But there are still moments of sinister tension coming from him when we see how apathetic, cruel and violent he can be. This is also a man with a lost childhood, so of course he would have an attachment to the innocent whimsy of the circus. He's filling in a void that his parents created, but he's still using that same emptiness to justify his villainy. His affinity towards birds isn't just a thematic aesthetic for the villain design, it also makes sense. He would have a natural empathy to aviary creatures, as they resemble his physical appearance, hence why he gets defensive when Catwoman threatens his pet bird. I really admire Danny DeVito's take on Penguin too. He's almost unrecognizable in the role. Yes, a lot of that is down to the impressive makeup, but DeVito also deserves credit for his performance too. He brings a very animalistic behaviour to the character, playing the part as a man in great discomfort with his deformed body, but also burning with wild sexual urgency and a feral defensive nature.
Thank you.
Mr. Cobblepot, you are the coolest role model a young person could have.
And you're the hottest young person a role model could have. Here. Wear a button. Let me just get it on there.
DeVito finds the tragedy in his character, but also knows that he's still playing a grotesque comic book villain too. So he tries to have fun with the Penguin as well, bringing a theatrical energy to his acting that fits the gothic melodrama of his character and makes him an entertaining antagonist. Can he get a bit too hammy sometimes? Maybe, particularly when he's mugging at a literal camera in a scene where he's hijacked the Batmobile. But for the most part, DeVito plays the Penguin as a pathetic, narcissistic beast with a vicious temper. In all honesty though, I think that Catwoman is this movie's greatest triumph. Selina Kyle isn't your typical superhero movie antagonist. She's a complicated character with a multifaceted array of personalities and an ambiguous moral code. She could be the hero of her own story, but she's too conflicted with her rage, letting her anger towards the corruption of Gotham overpower her once good nature. There's a tragic element to her character, as while her rebirth and eventual psychological snap bring a newfound confidence, she's also now no longer certain where her limits stand. She's gone from being meek and submissive to the complete opposite end of the spectrum, anarchic and destructive. Throughout the film, you can tell that she's struggling to identify who she really is anymore, bouncing between her better judgment and the need to punish the world that betrayed her. I also love how she owns her feminine charm. She uses her attractive appearance to outwit easily seduced men, including Batman and Penguin. But she also gives in to her repressed desires after a lifetime of loneliness. Her sexuality is both an empowering weapon and a part of her that she's always longed to express. Some folks have criticised the logic of Catwoman's origin story in this film, but I think that her transformation is supposed to be something more symbolic. It's an abstract character transition that doesn't invite magic or science into the equation, being rooted in something more subtextual than literal. The cats bring Selina back to life as thanks for showing them compassion, sharing their instincts and physical skills with her, which influences not only her psychology, but also her style of combat. Michelle Pfeiffer is mesmerizing as Selina Kyle, portraying her 4 different personalities with so much natural talent. The quiet, submissive secretary, the mentally unhinged, lonely woman, the cool, sexy new Selina, and the feline supervillain of the night. She switches between each with so much ease, bringing a depth and complexity to the antagonist.
Selina Kyle. You're fired. And Bruce Wayne. Why are you dressed up like Batman?
Because he is Batman, you moron.
Was.
You killed me. The Penguin killed me. Batman killed me. That's 3 lives down. You got enough in there to finish me off?
one way to find out.
I think it's important that we discuss the relationship between Bruce and Selina. The heartbreak of this romance is that these two aren't meant for each other, not just because they're really Batman and Catwoman, but they're also very different people with opposing ideas about how to fix Gotham. While their chemistry is sizzling, as these two are both as charismatic and mysterious as each other, their eventual realization about who the other is means that this relationship isn't going to work.
Oh my god. Does this mean we have to start fighting?
Let's go outside.
The truly sad thing is, Bruce can help Selina. He wants to be there for her, but her own stubborn refusal to seek help from others after being betrayed or condescended to by everyone is her own undoing.
Selina, please.
Bruce, I would love to live with you in your castle. Forever, just like in a fairy tale. I just couldn't live with myself, so don't pretend this is a happy ending.
Selina.
This film is also technically a Christmas movie. Yes, it's not your conventional, festive, holly-jolly film, but it's still set at that time of the year, and frequently draws attention to the season, going as far as using mistletoe as an important plot point. The blending of falling snow and Danny Elfman's whimsical, choir-filled music score makes for a strangely mystical atmosphere, which really fits the quirky nature of the film. I actually feel as if the Christmas setting supports this movie, because Christmas is a time of experiencing miracles and keeping legends alive. Heck, you could go as far as calling the Penguin a Krampus-like character, and possibly read Catwoman's resurrection as a nod to Christ. But maybe that's stretching things a bit, I don't know. I think that there's a quirky charm to this movie, as well as a consistent balance of goofy black comedy, complex drama, and action thrills. Plus, this film also carries on the first film's themes of duality and identity by exploring the psychological trauma of some new characters. Penguin and Catwoman have a lot in common, but they also share similarities with Batman himself, creating a strong, triangular dynamic for the three in the movie. It's a film that mixes up the superhero movie formula by letting an eccentric director indulge in his fixations with outcast culture, circus horror, and gothic tragedy. Sometimes it can be rewardingly experimental to let a director do what they want with a property when adapting it, because maybe they can bring a unique take to an existing premise. I've been Jambareeqi and I hope that you enjoyed this review. If you did, then feel free to subscribe, share and like. Also, please don't forget to press the notification bell. So, what am I going to be reviewing in the next episode of Jambareeqi Orange? Well, that's entirely up to my patrons. The options for next month's episode include The Swan Princess 3, Batman Forever, Ugly Dolls, Dr. Dolittle, Bad Boys, and Akira. That's a pretty awesome selection, am I right? Now, please remember that you have to be a patron in order to access this poll. What is a patron? Don't worry, I'll explain. This is my Patreon. It's a site for my fans to make monthly donations to me. Those who donate are called patrons. The money I receive goes towards funding my videos and serves as a supportive income for me. Patrons can donate as much as they want each month and stop donating any time. All donations are greatly appreciated, and in return for their patronage, patrons are given exciting rewards, depending on how much they donate, including their names credited in my main show, access to exclusive videos, and the chance to decide a review on my channel. I'm very excited to find out what my patrons want me to review next. Cheerio, folks.